Hello, thank you for joining us, and welcome to another episode of You Won't Believe What I Ate Last Night. I'm Kate DeVore, and I'm here with Rick Fiore for a very special episode, unfortunately, that we are recording the day after the election results came in. So thank you for joining us.
Woohoo! Yeah, thank you. So, you want to know the really good news, Kate,
No,
about this
I don't
election
need any good
process?
news at all. Definitely don't say anything positive. No, yes, of course, please give me anything I can hang on to.
For really the 2 weeks before the election, the stress in my body about whether or not Donald Trump was going to become president right up to the very end, and then not being able to eat for a day after, I have lost a total of 6 pounds because I've been so
You have
nauseous.
not.
I have. I have been eating so little that I literally have lost weight. I can't bear it. Have had such this wave of nausea. I can't put anything in. It's really
Also,
unbelievable.
I hate that you are a man. I hate you for being able to lose 6 pounds in a week, basically, because you're a man, and I hate you. So there's also that. So that is not good news. But it is funny you say that because I haven't eaten anything today, and it's like 3:30, and I'm like, oh my God, please may I become one of those people who can't eat when they're upset. That would be awesome.
I think this is one of the first times
Well,
it's
and I
happened
think
to me.
the key
I'm pretty
difference here
shocked.
is you had, I guess, a little possibility in your mind that he could win, it sounds like, and I didn't.
Yeah.
So I had that sort of blindsided quality. Like there was nothing in, like no part of my third eye saw this outcome. I really could not imagine for a moment the possibility that our nation would elect him.
Interesting. Do you know sometimes how you and I talk about when we really pay attention to our intuition and then our intuition is really right and we're blown away by it? This is sort of one of those times I think, God, if I had worked in any other profession, I would be a gazillionaire right now. Because the minute he announced his candidacy, I remember being struck with this quality of, oh, he's going to win. He's going to be president. And I have 3 friends that can verify that if anyone wants to, have proof of that. But I remember that, and then I really worked hard, right, to not let that be the predominant thing. The other thing that had always been in the back of my head, and I sort of say this because I think it's just important to remember sort of historical perspective, is that what we were asking of the electorate was very hard. Whenever a party's been in eight years, it's very rare that the same party gets another 4 years. It's happened, I believe, like twice
No,
in
I
our
know.
entire
Yeah.
history. So, yeah, I sort of like to throw that out because I'm like, it starts to just remember, oh, yeah, that's what that's what was challenging.
Yeah.
And we were up
I would
against,
like to talk about, in no particular order, really, like we're just sort of brainstorming here. I would like to talk about how the pollsters are surprised and couldn't see it coming, those unexpected hidden votes. Because as you know,
that
Rick,
was
I don't
crazy.
follow politics. It's not a hobby of mine. It's not something I enjoy. From the beginning, even I have been saying, you guys can't apply the normal rules to this. There are rocks being overturned here that are revealing things in our culture and our nation that don't fit the common standard. So people are going to come out to vote that have never come out before. So I don't understand how, if I could see that, people are now scratching their heads going, well, who could have predicted that? Like, well, so like, honestly, what's up with that?
It's I don't know, Kate. It's a great question because it is just fascinating. I mean, this is a man who from day one has broken all the rules. So to think that he wasn't going to continue breaking the rules, it's a great question. It's staggering. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think people underestimated your phrase is so great. How many rocks were going to be turned up?
Yeah. And even though I said
Yeah.
that, I was still lulled into a sense of false security because I guess I wanted to be, that. Well, also I thought it's just not possible. That's the other thing. I'm like, it just can't possibly happen. But I mean, my intuition is usually pretty on, and I really, as I was like,
I would agree.
nah, no way. I feel like I felt on 9/11. There's that element of shock and threat to our country and like the knowledge that something really, really, really bad has happened and we don't exactly understand the ramifications of that yet. That was how I felt all day yesterday. And
Oh,
somebody
wow, I
pointed
get
out that
that.
yesterday's date was 11/9. So it was 9/11 and 11/9.
Mm. Very interesting. I know, right? Yeah, I was definitely hit with a sense, more a sense of shock. I definitely was in the shock phase, and then I sort of moved back into the nauseous phase. But all during, from the minute this started happening, I just had this vibe in my body that all it resonated as was end game. Like, of course, this is what happened. It made so much sense to me. And so I've been trying to process that. Why is that sort of a predominant feeling? And I think it's a little bit of what I just said about the historical context of the election. I also think, this is something, you and I were actually scheduled to talk about an energy episode, right? But I think this is it's so interesting that this is sort of what I've been resonating with is at the end of the day, here's a man who like walked into a room and decided to stir up a particular type of energy, right? Because you and I know, and everyone knows, as a parent, as a teacher, you have the opportunity when you walk into people to stir and cultivate a particular type of energy. And I'm really sort of like dumbfounded by that quality of energy that he stoked, that he built, and that it could be lifted up. I'm really blown away by
Have
that.
you seen, I know you said you weren't really on Facebook much today. Have you seen the Twitter feeds and all those things of the day one of Trump's America? Of, oh, honey,
No.
there. I was actually doing a little bit okay today for some reasons we'll talk about in a minute. But then I looked at that, and it's just account after account of threats and physical violence and defamation of property and graffiti and hostility and just violence of all sorts being heaped on anyone who isn't white. And to read just each each thing, is they're none of them little.
Yeah.
It was just, it put me back in the fetal position. And they're all like,
Ugh.
we have a new president
That's,
now. Trump's president now. Go back to your country. Basically, get out of our country
yeah.
now. Like, is what people are saying. Because my mom was like, well, we don't know what he's going to do yet, which on the one hand is true.
True.
We don't know
Possibly.
exactly. I'm like, well, we know what he's going to do. He's going to destroy civil liberties and the environment, but we don't know how. But we know what's
Right.
happening in the country, regardless of what he does, like shit like that already.
Yeah, and remember this whole thing of when people tell you what they're going to do,
Hmm.
believe them. He's made it very clear what he's going to roll back and how it relates to women's rights, gay rights, the rights of immigrants, healthcare. So, yeah, I think we have to enter this remembering to take him at his word. I wanted to drop back for a minute, yeah, to that Facebook stuff and the Twitter stuff you were telling me about. That was sort of the hard thing is I really worked hard to stay away from it because there is this
Sorry.
idea, and I think it's one of the things that, oh, no, 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 all good, all good. I think it's one of those things that I'm thinking about as I move forward. What do I want to cultivate? There'll be a time when I get back on Facebook and I see all that stuff. But I do have to say, and I think this is so interesting what you and I have always talked about, I really dropped back into just sitting, closing my eyes and meditating and really being with what was there. Because I was really cautious of like, I knew if I got on Facebook, I was just going to, I felt I was just going to stir up more of what's already there. And I felt like if I had done that, my central nervous system was going to split and erupt into 1,000 little fibers.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess that's just, I guess I'm just thinking, as I go forward here, I just want to be, yeah, how do you start to let in, right? How do I start to let in the energy that I want, and what does that energy look like, and what are those actions that I'm going to take? I guess is
Totally.
what I'm
And I
wondering.
think you hit on something so important there, which is that we have to do that at our own pace. We really
Yeah,
need to honor the time it takes to grieve and to allow
yeah.
ourselves the space to grieve. I mean, it is something to grieve, and there are stages of grief, and this is no exception.
And you said this so well in one of your posts. So if you haven't checked out Kate's post on one of her pages, do. It's a really great way that you explain, which is what I was just struck by it is just, yeah, to be with it. And you said this great thing at the end, which is, once we allow that energy to move through us, there's thoughts, emotions, and then you can then we'll have the ability to, and I think you went to ... like you don't even know what the end of
Yeah,
that
it was
sentence
something
was
like
yet.
once because emotions do have a life, and if we truly experience them and really allow ourselves to feel them, they will move, they will shift because that is their nature. They're ephemeral by nature. And so if we really experience them, they'll eventually move, and then that'll be replaced by the desire to rise up. And then what I said was, and I don't know the end of this sentence yet because I'm still in that first part. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Well,
beautiful. Well
thank you.
said.
Thank
Well
you. And I
said.
do think it's important because a lot of people are like, oh, get over it. Oh, act. Don't mourn. And, if that works for you, awesome. Obviously, fantastic. And I'm not
Right.
suggesting we don't need to move into an action phase. I am suggesting that something absolutely horrific has transpired, and to not allow the nervous system, as you say, the moment to integrate that would be a crime and would only make it worse. So allow ourselves space to process, to be sad, to be scared, to be angry, to be nothing, to sit on the
Mm-hmm.
couch and drink wine and watch movies if that's what our version of that is, whatever it is, and to not feel bad about that moment needs to happen so we can absorb and resonate with where we are.
I want to share two things with you that you made me think of, which I just think is odd. So there's the whole thing how I
Mhm.
wasn't eating over the last week and the last couple of days because I was
Mhm.
so nauseous. And that was a weird reaction I hadn't really
Mhm.
had before. The last 2 days, I just felt all this energy in my body that it actually made me
Mm.
get on the treadmill. Like I was stunned. So there's that. And then, when I was sitting and really paying attention to this terrible quality I had in the lower abdominal region, right? That area maybe between like two finger lengths below the navel and a little bit low and then a little bit higher. I was just like, wow, that sense of nausea and this sense of fear and trepidation. And that had a very, I don't know how to say, like it had a very downward moving quality to it. Not like it was grounding me, just like, ugh, like something's sucking me down, like a vortex has got me and is trying to pull me down. And then I thought, well, isn't that interesting? Because I think a lot of times when I get excited and I'm like nervous excitement about something really good happening, I get it in the same area, but it has a
Mm.
quality of moving
Mm.
up into my head, into my
Mhm.
heart. So I just thought, oh, isn't that interesting? So and this, it just brings up how closely sometimes the emotions can be tied an intense sense of fear, is it? I guess, and then an intense sense of excitement. And so I'm hoping, right, that somehow they're going to either like combine and transmute or blend. But I guess I was struck by that. And that's really the big question, right? We're talking about is really paying attention to what you're
And
feeling. And then it'll rise up
what's really
somehow.
cool about what you just said, also, just with regard to you personally, is Rick and I just recorded something that we haven't posted yet on YouTube, but we will soon. We did a little shawarma talk about feeling our emotions in our body. And I asked him in that
Mm.
talk, do you
Oh,
experience that? And he was like,
yes.
no, not really. And this is such a perfect example of you totally experiencing that, like noticing what the
Yeah.
correlation is between your emotions and what you feel physically. So that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah,
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 so
yeah.
watch our YouTube channel, by the way,
I
for when those videos come out, because we're going to be posting them more regularly.
Here's what I've been thinking a lot too. When you play sports, I don't know. I actually don't play sports, so I actually don't know what I'm talking about. This could be the section called Rick Makes Shit Up. That you're assigned a handicapped, right? You probably have a
In golf,
handicap in
yep.
golf, yeah? Yeah, okay.
I
Kate's
know
like,
that,
golf.
yes. Golf, you have a handicap, yep.
Is there a
No.
handicap in football? Okay. Kate, you're so funny. You're like, no. Uh, so here's what I wrote down is that I love being a liberal. I love being open-hearted. I love love. And I really sort of see that we have a handicap, right? And that's our handicap is that, the way I wrote it down is like, we don't play dirty. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? We don't set out, and this is what came to me, we don't set out to distort the truth. We don't set out to consciously and intentionally undermine the truth. Like, for a liberal, there's just not equivalencies to what was done. And I guess I say that because it started to get, I'm trying to hold on to something,
Mm-hmm.
right? To keep me open and to keep me like remembering, like the way this game was played, particularly against women, particularly against Muslims, right? It was not cool.
No, they played
And
dirty, and they always do. We're not going to be
yeah,
obstructionist in the House and
agreed.
Senate, you know? I mean, we can't because we're the minority,
No.
but still, we could still be obstructionist, but we probably won't. It's not
Yeah.
in the nature of the party.
No, we don't.
Also, I don't think you understand the handicap concept, by the way, in sports, because you
I
get
don't.
points back for your handicap. The point is in sports,
Oh, you
yeah,
do?
like you get extra, you get like it levels the playing field. The purpose, my understanding is
Okay.
in golf, the purpose of a handicap is to level the playing field. So if someone is a better player, they get a handicap of minus some points if they're playing a lesser player, so that it's more level, which would be lovely if we
I love
did.
that. I love that sometimes you're so more masculine than I ever am or will be. Not that that's a
Yeah,
particularly
I don't
masculine
know
thing.
about that.
Maybe it's just going to level me karmically.
There we go. Yeah, I've had a lot of clients who are golfers actually, so I've learned some about it. That's the only reason I know. Yeah.
Do you
yeah,
really?
Yeah. We got to talk
Okay.
about stuff in voice therapy, so it comes up.
Oh, I was like, why are golfers working on their voices? Aren't
Well,
they
they're not
supposed to be
professional
quiet?
golfers. I mean, they play golf. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I haven't had any professional golfers. So here's something. I'm noticing a lot of people calling for an impeachment already, which, while emotionally satisfying, begs the question of that would bring us Pence as the president. And I actually am afraid that Pence is worse, right? Because he's actually a politician. He knows how to do things. And my other
He
thing is
does.
that Trump has waffled so much over his years in the public eye about his opinions that I actually don't know that we really know what he believes. We know what he says, but I don't think we know what he
Agreed.
believes. We can't believe a thing that comes out of his mouth. We know what Pence believes, and we know that he will enact them.
It's
So
true.
I find him to be even more of a threat. Do you have thoughts on that?
I do. I agree
Yeah.
with you. It's a valid point. This raises the whole question of who's really going to be running the country, because we know that when they were shopping out the vice president gig, one of his sons is on record for, I think, going to, was it Kasich? That basically, I forget the guy. Is that the guy from Ohio? Anyway, he went to one of them. It was basically like, this is a position that's set up to be the most valuable position in the country, because Donald, he really just wants to be the one that goes around, right? Flies around making everyone feel good, and he doesn't want to deal with any of those sort of domestic policy issues. So, yeah, it's a valid question, Kate. You know, the thing about I always struggle with him is, you know, he's really, when you think about the pro-lifers in this country, he's at the top of the chain. He is so dedicated to ending abortion. And he's also part of this renegade group of people who actually want to change the laws for divorce, that they want to make it harder for divorce to happen, particularly for women to get divorced.
I didn't know that
from
last
men.
part.
That's what's really tough. Yeah, it's tough times. It's a very small faction, but that's right up there with the sort of right
Because
to
I
life
know
thing.
that he had that rule
So,
about how women have to pay for a funeral for their miscarriages, even not even abortions. I mean, it's arcane. It's like a scold's bridle. It's absolutely crazy. And
yeah,
this is now when it's still legal. You know, I mean,
yeah.
the whole thing's boggling. Okay, so there's that.
And going back to your ultimate question, yeah, here's the thing. You're right. You're absolutely right. We don't know a thing about Donald and how it's going to shake out. If Donald's around, they're anticipating a big fight
What do you mean?
because
Who's
he
they?
really
Who's
represents.
they? And
What'd
what
you
do you
say?
mean?
All the political people in the country, because basically they often said that watching him be president will intrinsically be a little bit more sort of dynamic and interesting, because this is now two factions of the same party are in control, and this is for them to work it out. You basically have the base that voted Donald in, and then you actually have what might be considered the sane
the moderate
part of the
Republicans.
base. Yeah, and how they're going
That's
to
really
figure it
interesting.
out.
So just like the premise is that one of the things that we can do to help as allies is try to basically help the straight white males become woke, as they say, right? Like that's what we're supposed to do is convince the other white people. As white people, we're supposed to convince the other white people where they're erring in their perspectives. And so it sounds like in a way the people who can save the day are the moderate Republicans, actually, as opposed to the
Yeah.
Democrats. I hadn't thought about that. That's interesting.
This will be interesting, and this is the big question. Will they save the day, Kate? Because they are in a terrible position, right? They're elected in part by the large part of the base that elected Trump. So they're going to have to figure out how do they try to hold on to their point of view, right? And their moderate to sane point of view, and try and please the base, which is, we know where that side is.
So here's two other things that are problematic. They're sort of related. They're really not related. One is she won the popular vote, and that just gets under my skin. And from everything I can ascertain, the Electoral College is stupid. Now, I understand the language behind why it was created. It doesn't seem that that is really, it's like, so everyone is represented. But really, if everyone was represented, the popular vote would win. And what are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
My thoughts are, that's sort of the way they set it up. I've always understood it as a stopgap.
A stopgap, a
That,
temporary
because the
measure? No?
no, it was a mechanism put in place to actually stop the people if they ever became insane
Mm.
and wanted to put someone in. So you remember during the
Oh.
primary season, you know
You
how they
mean
were
like what
all
just
like they were
happened?
saying even yes,
Didn't
exactly.
work.
So remember during the primaries,
Fucking Hamilton.
love you, Lynn. Can I
No, I
marry
meant
you?
the actual Hamilton. Wasn't he one of the, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
exactly. So they are all saying even though Donald gets the votes to become the nominee, when they go to the convention, all of the states could be like, you know what, even though our state voted for him, we're still going to give our votes to George W. Bush. And the same principle works during the national election, is that all these votes, they go to I forget the titles, but they go up to the state, they get certified by everyone. And there's an opportunity where they could be like, here's the deal. We're
Yeah,
not going
what
to
do they
do
call
that.
it?
We're going to put him in this
Non-confidence
way.
or lack of something like that.
Yeah. And this goes back to the very thing of why it's never happened in this country, because who really wants to go against the will of the people? Who wants to be the first and be like, yeah, this is who they selected, but no.
Well,
Not
except so
gonna
now the
happen.
result is against the will of the people because the majority of people did not select the current president. So I don't understand how that
Agreed.
meshes.
It's a weird, antiquated thing. I get it, and it's not going to change. Here's the question: will it change? Will it change anytime soon? Probably not. I get it. I'm all about the popular vote.
I wonder, though, is there some validity to what they say, though, that we can't be, I mean, because obviously this is why we can't have nice things. I mean, look at what just happened. But, like, is it true that we can't be trusted with our own decision? Like, it really seems that the popular vote makes more sense. But I understand that, well, what if you get a lunatic who's blah, 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 and he's going to appeal to blah, blah, blah. But is that better? Like, it doesn't seem like that's better, what we have now.
To me, I don't know. To me, it doesn't always resonate as a question is better. I guess I just thinking, well, it's an option. It's a stopgap. It's, you know what I mean? It's there, to be switched or changed or controlled. But I don't know if it's better, because either way, you could look at it that even the people who are in charge of certifying the votes and putting them and presenting them, to the college for verification, they could do the same thing and be like, oh, we don't want this person, right? They could just do the same thing the other way.
All right, I don't know. All right.
Hey, how are you feeling about third-party candidates?
Well, I ultimately think that, I mean, the majority of the and Florida, people are like, Florida, that's large percentage voted for blah, blah, for Gary Johnson. And I don't think that most of those people would have voted for Clinton. So I actually don't know that in the long run that it really did make a big difference. What do you think about that?
Right. We'll never know, but I just think it's interesting. Here's what I want to say, and I just want to quote something that Rachel Maddow said on one of her whatever post or whatever she's on. What is she on the TV? She basically said that if you're voting for a candidate that has no chance to win, it actually means you don't care about who becomes president. And I just thought that was really resonant and important to say.
I agree completely.
Going forward. And you and I both agree on this. And let's just put this out there for anyone that supports the Green Party. Love the Green Party, but you know what? Build them from the ground up. Support them on a local level, then a state level, and then a national level. We got to stop this Yahoo thing where we trounce someone out every 4 years who has no option for winning because no ground game's been built around the party.
It's so true. And again, I admit I voted for Nader. It was my first election. I voted for Nader because it was so appealing. And boy, did I learn my lesson when Gore didn't win by that little tiny margin. And I really was part of the problem in that election. And yeah, it's so true. It's so true. The way those people are going to get into power are not by suddenly being president. It's by having a base and a party and all of that.
And just a side note, can we rename the party? I don't know. Let's just call it the American Party.
Which
I like
one?
that.
The Green?
The Green, yeah.
Yeah, there needs to be another name of something, totally. All right, here's the last point that I want to bring up that was super disturbing to me is that he won the white female vote by, I want to say 8 percentage points, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
who are these women?
What?
They're not the white women that I know, and
So,
most of my friends are white women. I'm guessing maybe part of it is rich and poor, who aren't the people that I know. So I'm guessing the extreme, because I think that wealthy voters, regardless of color or gender or anything else, vote more as identify more as a rich person than as anything else. And so I suspect that
hmm
there's that population, and then perhaps the impoverished, and then in that line also other people I don't know, rural population. And I guess there's also a really big sort of Christian right wing thing, although he couldn't be less Christian, so I don't get that. So that was shocking to me.
uh, this is the big untold secret of this election: is the religious right quietly, unbeknownst to anyone, organized around him because of the Supreme Court. I think that's going to be one of the big things to come out.
Quietly? Yeah, I mean, wasn't that like an overt thing, you don't think? The religious right being.
No, no, and here's what I'm doing. I'm comparing back to the presidency of George W. Bush, where it was very vocal that they were going after it. Yeah, he was up there saying about, oh, this is about the Supreme Court, but I don't feel like there was much of a stink made about it because there's so much a stink being made about everything else he said. I don't think anyone had any time to pay attention to this faction of the American public. And I hear stories about this all the time from friends on Facebook who say they're going to hold their nose and vote for Trump because of God's will and the right and the need we have to protect those
Gotcha.
babies.
Okay.
So that whole thing about the women who voted for him, I was really pondering that. And so all it made me do is go back today when I was preparing for the episode to Susan B. Anthony, right? And look at some of her writings, some of her quotes. And this is a quote I found, and it says, "No self-respecting woman should wish or work for the success of a party who ignores her sex." And the reason that resonated with me is because this is really the ability for women to ignore their sex, for what's involved in being a woman as far as reproductive rights and equal pay and respect and not being grabbed by parts of your body. This to me is one of sort of the benefits of progress, right? There are a large amount of women that those things don't apply to. They don't have to worry about equal pay. They don't have to worry about being grabbed by their parts. They don't have to worry about sexual harassment in the workforce. And it's sort of the same thing I equate with youth in the gay movement. When you particularly hear about gays that have voted for Trump and the log cabin Republicans who are a group of gay Republicans who refuse to endorse anyone and not just endorse Trump, and yet now they're very active about what we have to do. It's that sort of that same thing. It's the very nature of progress. You make so much progress, you're able to do so many other things that you don't actually understand that sense of oppression and the things that still stand.
Yeah, and I think I would be okay with my sex being ignored. I'm not okay with it being attacked. So it's not just being ignored.
Point,
it's being actively attacked. That's
attacked and assaulted.
That's the bigger problem. Yeah. All right. Yeah, what do we do, Rick?
Well, let me tell you. Here's what I'm resolved, right? So here's where I am right now. This is what I'm doing in my own life. And as I said with Kate, I was saying earlier, is that I work head to toe with Republicans. So it's been an interesting week. And I just go back to how any movement has made progress, particularly the women's movement and the gay movement, is you make progress by being who you are. They always said that the best thing that gay Americans could do is come out, be who you are, live as you want to live in the face of realizing you may not get anything for it, right? There'll be no change. There'll be no laws. There'll be no rights. And so I say this, that I think it's really important for people to be really honest as they go forward about their story and their narrative. And I'm talking about things like here's what I'm doing. When people try to say this was about, the economy, I'm like, no, it really wasn't. If they're trying to say it was about Obamacare, I'm like, no, let's be clear. This is about race. This is about misogyny. This is about fear mongering, right? Let's be clear. This is about a population who decided that political correctness is no longer necessary, that you can say or do or feel anything you say or do you feel is valid, and you can express it in any volatile, insensitive way. So I think that's an important thing.
I actually
to stand up for and be
looked up political correctness when this conversation started happening, because I always look stuff up. I always have to know the definition of everything. And it basically said something about like describing things in a way that's courteous and not offensive to members of that population. So basically, all it means is being civil and being polite and
Exactly.
not just being rude and offensive. And so I don't understand how anybody, particularly somebody who claims to be God-fearing, would be like, no, I think civility and courtesy is terrible and we must stop being polite
Yeah.
to our fellow humans.
Totally. Well, the definition I pulled, it says the avoidance often considered, political correctness. The avoidance often considered as taking to extremes of forms of expression or action that are perceived to exclude, marginalize, or insult groups of people who are socially disadvantaged or discriminated
Right.
against.
So avoiding
Yeah.
being insensitive to marginalized people.
Yeah. Totally. And I think that's where, for me, the religious right comes in. Because Kate, you and I could do a whole podcast on that dynamic, right? What you just said, which is, let's be mean, grab women by the body parts. Let's talk about
Because
people
that's
the way
what
they do,
Jesus
but
said.
let's-
I mean, come on.
what would Jesus?
Of course, Jesus wouldn't be allowed in the country now, so there we go. Or his
Right?
mother.
Before we came on air, we were just talking about the importance of being in community. And so that's sort of my big thing too. You got to get towards the people that, you want to talk to. And what were you saying about Facebook before?
It is a way of feeling somewhat connected without feeling, without having to actually be with people.
Totally. Because it is through that sense of connection that something's going to rise up, right? So, because here's the thing, I don't know how or when, but a whole new community is going to be built around this somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it has to. I know. That's obviously the phoenix from the ashes, as it were.
Yeah.
There has to be. In retrospect, it'll perhaps be good. But yeah. So I guess we need to not panic, because that doesn't help anything. We certainly need to be kind.
But, if you want to, yeah. And so here's the thing, is what Kate sort of said in the beginning of the episode that we're going to come back to. Just feel what you're feeling. Definitely sit with it, because we know this stuff has to move through our body. We can't hold it in. We cannot not process it. So make sure you do that. If that's sort of like what I tended to do sitting alone, if that's getting on Facebook, if it's hooking up with a friend's dog and petting the dog.
Not that I'm doing that later tonight. He was just making that up.
That's totally what she's doing. It's so awesome. She called a friend and said, I need to see your dog.
And I'd like to see you too, but whatever. It's true.
Right, because it's about maintaining your connection. So that's however you do it, super, super important. And then you know what? Let something rise. As the musical says, I'm gonna rise up, rise up.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that as time goes by, there's going to be a lot of opportunities to be active. Currently, I've already set up monthly donations to Planned Parenthood and the American Civil Liberties Union. I chose those two, but there's a million really great, like 15 really great charities that could really use our money right now. So I did a small monthly donation and I just put it on my card so I don't think about it. But I do a little thing every month. And if you guys have ideas for groups, for activities, for things that would be helpful, do please let us know. Let us know on our Facebook page. Let us know on our website. Comment on our YouTube channel, all of it.
And also, we want to know how you're processing this. This is a huge thing for America. So by all means, record something on your phone, send us an MP3. Because here's the thing, this issue isn't going away. This is going to be a part of, what Kate and I always talk about on the show, which is what do we take into our bodies? This is something we're going to be digesting for a very long time. So let us know what you think. You can send us an MP3 to youwon'tbelievewhatIate@gmail.com.
All right. Stay strong, our brethren and cistern.
Power to the people.
Power to the people. Hang in there. We love you.
You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like suns and like moons, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my sassiness upset you? Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh. as if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I'll rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh, does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, naturally, there I go rising.